Sup everyone, this is Karak with ACG, and it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that are complete, not 2 minutes long, or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today I'm so stoked and going for broke as I bring to you the review for the PC and Xbox One title, Forza Horizon 3. Now Forza Horizon is the third in the Little Brother series, splitting off from the original franchise, eschewing that collection of clean driving competitions, and of course the desire to draw road-based art pieces with the burned-off rubber of multi-$1,000 car tires. Horizon really raises a middle finger to the established norm, transports you to a mysterious locale, and then smashes you full speed into a guardrail as it zooms off for the finish. In the tradition of open-world racing games, Forza takes you to a driving playground and then lets you have at it. This time it's the ex-penal colony and most dangerous place on Earth, Australia. I mean, let's be honest, what's the worst thing that can happen in a world where even the warm and cuddlies are trying to kill you and everyone starts off driving on the wrong side of the road? Let's see. As always, if you like the review, maybe subscribe. So here is the review for Forza Horizon 3, Walmart management-style racing, drone mode, and dune buggies with nuclear cores, where their engine should be. Graphics are up first. You know, as each Horizon has come out, its graphics presentation has been stepped up, which is of course what you would expect. But with the addition of HDR lighting in the Xbox One version, improved destructibility, a rock-solid gameplay engine, and a desire to take machines with horsepower numbers that appear like Atlas rockets, it's the feeling of speed and beauty that excels in Horizon 3 versus just, say, increasing something like texture resolution or cars on screen. But to me at least, it's the landscape in Australia that absolutely shines here, and the design the developers have put into place to cut it up like a landscape Jenga puzzle for our amusement. It's noticeably high caliber from the very first moment you're plopped down into the most unfair scripted race of all time against a friggin' helicopter Jeep combo. The landscape and its presentation delivered via a superb lighting engine is equally on par with some of the best looking games on consoles, and while Drive Club probably still has the award for most insane weather effects in a racer ever, Horizon is no slouch in that department either, with excellent particle systems, beautiful shaders, and some really outstanding water effects in both standing water and rain. Forza 3 though continues to be a highlight, and that's also due to its HDR presentation. When you're literally trimming treetops with the underside of a hilariously overpowered sand buggy, that HDR implementation allows you to actually see far more that's going on within the shadow and within the light. Speaking, of course, of the HDR difference, is it noticeable? Yes, it's highly noticeable, and the more you play with it, the more you will notice it if you jump to a non-HDR display. It's going to have you leaping for the adjustments, thinking something is completely off. But without it, Forza is still stunning at almost all times. Now, as always, the models for the 350 plus vehicles are superb, from basic Australian mystery vehicles to the more eclectic road racers that we normally see in speed challenge road races. Here, you might be flying down a freshly wet decline at 160 miles per hour only to turn off into a muddy road and bust out through a ravine filled with yesterday's rainwater. Every vehicle looks superb, from its most basic to, of course, later undercut versions with body kits and rear spoilers, and of course, the massive customization systems are here in spades, including the addition of auctions and storefronts. As I continued to play it, there was just always a great deal in Horizon 3 that really surprised me, from the negligible pop-in to the excellent particle systems to the in-city moments with almost zero appreciable ghost buildings suddenly popping up to say boo. Now, if there's one thing I'm not that impressed with, it is, of course, continued within the damage system on the cars. It's fairly obvious that it's turned down a bit, and even on its highest settings, and while the destructibility of the world is high itself, your own vehicle seems to be continually made of just a couple parts of fold and bin metal, or unobtainium. It's good, but not great, and even after 21 rolls down a dangerous creature-filled ravine, my car was suspiciously whole. As a package, Horizon seems to deliver the most it absolutely can. I would have loved for 60 frames per second on the console, but what we get is a solid 30 on the console, HDR lighting, and of course that incredible lighting engine in all ways even without it. And probably the most enjoyable tracks and just the most enjoyable location in a Horizon game for me yet, which is really surprising. With the PC of course allowing for full 4K resolutions, but unfortunately no word yet on HDR support. Excellent job. Sound, music, and voice.
Freight train. Brilliant, isn't it? Word of warning, though. The Crossbuy design crosses the tracks.
And of course, sound is up first. Now, the first time you crest a hill with this rankling, crazy sound of a cow finch chasing you because it's stuck under one of your side rails, it is fantastic stuff and completely dialed in when it comes to processing direction and atmosphere. Cars sound fantastic from the throaty full deep roar of the old classic with pistons the size of men's forearms to the more decked out grills and high pressure furnaces of turboed sports cars tearing across countryside. But what I like so much about the sound here is that its presentation allows for more participation. For example, the Shelby and a couple others have this low idle that fades out into a mid-range roar, switching up through your speakers effortlessly as you climb gears, and while that occurs in many racing games, this open world element of Horizon allows you to experience it far more often as you're bouncing around different venues, stopping at locations to sightsee, and setting up races. Also, I love the continued variation. For example, switching up from, say, a stock vehicle with its low horsepower soccer mom safe sound to an upgraded ignition hotter than the surface of the sun monstrosity with a handling setting that looks like my IQ score. It's a tremendous switchover. That dynamic change from one to the other is needed in games like this, and each component adds a bit of a song to that engine, whether it be a small change to aspiration or swapping out your four-cylinder for something the likes of which funny car drivers would look at and say, yeah, dude, I'll pass. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean everything is great. Sometimes crashes can be a bit muddy with a missing kineticism, especially in full-body clips, where hitting another car sounds suspiciously like the same sample is used for multiple vehicles, even if their shape is drastically different. Now, I mean, it's not that bad, but it's occasionally noticeable with this strange, muddy sound to it that really surprised me. It's covered up for the most part by various other sound effects played at the same time, but I noticed it. And lastly, the mixing seemed really off on normal settings, but the game obviously has a bevy of options, like adjusting the car sound separate from the tire sound, as we've seen before, allowing for more roar and less rawr, rawr, rawr. It just took a couple seconds to dial it in, though. As a complete offering, I'd say it's really good, but it's held down by a couple things. Music. Now, for reasons basically explained, they lock radio stations behind success in the game, and you're given the barest of explanations of what a radio station may have before you sign a deal with them to support your festival. It's not a good system at all, and could lead to some awkward times where you're going for hours and hours without having any really good, enjoyable, listenable music in a genre that you might appreciate. If you're a fan of having music while playing, of course. Now, this system could have done wonders with a sample library, because seriously, some of the explanations are brutally lacking in detail of what you're going to get. It's like they were too busy making jokes throughout the entire presentation to realize that you might actually want some information for your choice. Now, as is common, some of the radio stations are just broad genres, and they're represented in that way, not a typical selection, but they are trying to mimic the feeling of a festival where everyone just runs their voice through bass filters and are bald and suddenly they're Vin Diesel. So that means more of an eclectic fare, and even some of the much more modern pop is out, if that matters to you. Also, the options were once again all over the place. For example, you're supposed to be able to use Microsoft's Groove music, which played havoc with the settings, sometimes overriding the inboard radio stations, which resulted in Apocalypse musical form when Bach played over the top of Beastie Boys. As a package, I'd say it's middling to say the least, both in options and in overall offerings. This is probably going to be one of those situations where you're playing music on a side app or you're using Groove. Voice. So most of the voice is split between your GPS, your festival help, and radio DJs. They run the gamut from good to bad, with the continual humor that past Horizon games have had turned up even more here, and much of it falls flat. Add to that the fact that when you're getting info delivered to you in many sections, the game just stops flatly taking input, so you have to hear them. Now, it's annoying the first couple of times, and then you just get up and get a sandwich because someone's going to be joking about possibly doing underground races, like everything you're already doing on the roads isn't flatly illegal. Okay voice at the best. Gameplay. Alright, so you're now the boss of the Horizon Festival versus an employee, which means, well, it means almost absolutely nothing different from the past that's really changed. It just means that you're now racing to get fans to open up some venues versus getting access to them as a racer. So it's the Walmart manager version of leadership. You're doing everything everyone else does and you call it something different. To get money, fans, and experience, you have to race across a series of events, stretching everything from drifting to all-out sprints to full-on rally-style events, and of course, the bread and butter, which is laps around the countryside. There are also a large number of side events like bucket lists and hidden vehicles throughout the countryside. Now, it's all displayed in an open-world style, with you unlocking more of a particular type of event by doing it more often. Now, also, events have been dramatically improved by just a couple small changes. For example, blueprints. This means that for every event you enter, you can race what the devs have created for that location, of which there are usually many styles, breaking it up by class and car type, but also create your own with some basic options. Want a wet and wild slip and slide disaster simulator through a twisting forest road? Check, just make it. Want to test your lateral G's and reaction speed in the same area? Well then, make it nighttime and dry as a bone. While the options are a bit basic, the ability to create and name your own allows for your personal stamp on the experience. And since the game lets you get the same rewards whether you do their version or someone else's or your own, it absolutely does not penalize for experimentation. This is a fantastic addition to the title. Also, in most of those, you can do an exhibition mode, a championship mode, or, of course, play against rivals. Now, speaking of other characters and rivals, since you're in control, you hire and fire drivatars as a team that work for you and go race others in their games and get money for you. To hire them, you have to beat them, and you only have 4 spots, so you're constantly trying to get better and better ones for higher challenges. Now, that works tremendously well and gives you a reason to have some of those open world standoffs. Also, there are skills. These are things like one-offs, where you get a pot full of gold for buying cars or more spins on the wheel of Forza, or skills revolving around being the person who runs the festival, like getting drivatars more cash when they race others, or ones based solely on you as a driver, like more EXP for drifting and so on. Additionally, there's just a massive number of them. They're upgraded and purchased when you go up levels, and each set of skills progressively climbs in their cost. Let's talk about control for a second. Now first, the driving engine in Horizon games has always been a bit different than Forza Prime, and that makes sense considered the different tact in which it's all delivered. But I have to say personally, this easily feels like the best control I've had in a Horizon game. It's tactile, responsive, and eminently drivable, even with the gamepad, though it achieves insane levels of immersion with the steering wheel, that is for sure. The control was right on, and with the vast number of customization and tuning systems, if you don't like something that you're driving, I can almost guarantee you're going to be able to make it fit your style with a little bit of experimentation. And those are all locked down really well, and it needs to be, because seriously, while there are some races where you're going to be against yourself or a ghost rival, most will involve other drivers based on drivatars of friends and those who played Forza games in the past. Welcome to Patented Clown Car AI. It's like 10, 12-year-olds hopped up on Tartantinies trying to see if they can kill one another and souped up bumper cars. Now, that's fine, because Horizon's always been a bit more about trading paint than the normal Forza titles, and that's half the fun, but expect an extraordinary amount of paint trading regardless of position, especially in the starts. They also use some fairly advanced cutoff techniques that I actually liked, but it can be a little bit infuriating. Also, something that absolutely should not be here, and I have to bring it up. So when I test on all difficulties and options, identifying the difficulty curves for people who are newcomers to the game series, as well as old hands like myself. While on Novice, the AI literally throws races, not once, but an extraordinary ton of times, and it doesn't hide it. And many times it just simply hits the brakes in the center of an empty road way up front of you and lets you fly past like Maverick and Top Gun. Now, the nice but also puzzling thing is this doesn't replicate in other difficulties, and the game is surprisingly devoid of rubber banding, as I beat some races many seconds faster than others and vice versa, which makes this, again, like I said, even more surprising. It literally looked like a bug when I switched to that difficulty. This also means that for some, the push to do better, moving of course from novice to more medium level difficulties, might be hampered by them winning less on their own skill and more on the game, just straight up Apollo Creeding it and letting you win that sprint. I do not like that. That is something that absolutely should not be in a game. Now, that being said, we have a lot of modes here. Online is robust with 4-player co-op that progresses in step with the single-player game. All that progression goes back and forth. You can also jump into the adventure mode where you're basically shuttled from event to event, or choose to just do racing and nothing on the side. Now, free roam, of course, lets you do things like bucket lists, huge jumps, and randomly challenging folks, which for the first time ever in a Horizon game, or pretty much any game, this is now my favorite part of a title, hands down. I just wish it wasn't so damn difficult to challenge them. For reasons I can't quite get a hold of, you literally have to be up snug tight against someone to challenge them from behind, resulting in a number of really odd circumstances where sometimes the game doesn't give the option for like 10 seconds, then randomly, boom, challenge button is live. Hopefully that's going to be patched, because it actually seems like it's getting data from the server somewhere, and there's a huge lag there. Now, all this is packaged up with a fairly good HUD, though with the new additions, it can get a bit messy. Also, Forza's love for strangely differently sized rectangles for choices means a number of missteps, as moving to the right in the option screen might move you to a little itsy bitsy box, or the box under it, or the box under that. Fun factor. Yeah, easily the most fun Horizon yet. Just simply open world brilliance. It looks fantastic, has crossplay, co-play, and online. It just works. Also, the extended car list with some sports cars that only French royalty probably have, down to friggin' vans. And I mean not minivans, but straight up kidnapper white vans. And yes, they can be customized and pimped out, because who doesn't want their kidnapper van to sport an undercut profile and go 0 to 60 in felony seconds? So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This is easily a buy. Remember, you do buy the Xbox One version, you get the PC version, and vice versa. It's crossplay, it's co-play. This is really where you see the maturity and the mayhem here, where these guys have gone from title to title and finally really, what I think, delivered that original title that they always wanted. Everything seems pretty much put together here. Sure, there's issues with the sounds, there's a couple issues with the layering, but when it comes down to it straight up as a game, this, to me, is probably one of the few classics I've played. So as always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, check out Twitter and maybe Patreon. If you dislike it, give it a thumbs down, and remember, if you want reviews that aren't filled with bullshit or 2 minutes long, stick with ACG. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.